Hello everyone. I am the Red Tiger. And in this video I will be talking about democracy and how it is mostly a sham to keep us in line. Do we really have democracy? In Britain, as in other so-called democracies, we have a political system called a representative democracy. As I understand it, this means that the public vote for a representative who will speak in government on their behalf. That is, they are elected by the people to speak for the people. But we all know that this is not what we truly have. We all know that politicians like to get elected, so much so that the word politician is synonymous with liar in people's minds. How can such politicians be our representatives when they deceive us? We also know that politicians make decisions against the wishes of the public and ignore our complaints. If politicians were really elected by us to speak for us, then that would make them our employees, our servants. And we could instruct them to enact our wishes and fire them if they do otherwise or perform badly. But we have no such control over our alleged representatives. All we can do is vote them out after years of enduring their abuse. Not only that, but when there are only two parties to choose from, it becomes simply a case of swapping tyrants every few years, under the pretense that this is choice. What often happens is that one party will retain power until people become so fed up with their abuse that they vote in the other party. Not because they like that party but to get rid of the previous party. And this carries on. We swap our tyrants every now and then and we stay stuck in a political system that we hate. This lie of democracy demoralizes people and often makes them think that nothing can be done in the face of such corruption. Our so-called representatives then berate us for not voting. Some people even blame each other for complaining about the system when they don't vote. But such people fail to understand that the vote is a sham. This is partly because political parties are undemocratic by nature. How things are supposed to work is that you read each party's manifesto and vote for whomever shares your beliefs. This is hierarchical, top-down thinking. This is not democracy. This is pick your preferred dictator. In a truly democratic system, a party should only have policies dictated by its members. That is to say that a politician behind his lectern would say not my party will do these things for you, but instead say what do you want my party to do for you. Only the latter is truly acting as a representative of the people. The former is simply dictating to people what they will do. You can vote for it or not. But because political manifestos are a packet of policies, you are stuck with voting for things you don't agree with just to get the things you do agree with. So, what can be done about this? I often think it would be interesting to start a purely democratic political party. Such a party's manifesto would be single interest, in a sense, because it would only promise to set up a system by which a purely democratic system could operate. Such a system would have massive effect and could be used to create and apply policy on any and all issues using public vote. Interestingly enough, making a single interest party be, in effect, a party of all interests. The party would have no policies, other than those to set up the mechanism for pure democracy, and would thus have to crowdsource policies from the public, or present ideas to the public. Such policies would then need public approval by vote to be enacted. Such a system could be set in place by instigating a few new rules. First, there needs to be an easy way for people to learn about possible policies and new laws and to vote on them. One way to do this is televised voting system coupled with some form of biometric identification to prevent voter fraud. People would watch a TV show, aired regularly, which would present and discuss an issue and end with a public vote. People would vote from home or elsewhere via phone or tablet. The results could be kept for a week to allow people who have not voted to do so, and then the results would be broadcast. The results should show the total number of voters who voted for each option and the total number who did not vote. This should help to put things in perspective rather than simply saying a policy passed or failed. Also, if the majority of people are those who did not vote, then a re-vote later along with other possibilities should be considered. In the event of a close vote on a law or policy, then an action which reflects the most balanced of the two polarities should be undertaken, as strictly following either side would be counter to nearly half the population. Perhaps only an 80% majority or higher should be clear and decisive. Voters must have good choices offered to them, and the addition of none of the above and need more information should be included and binding. That is, if a majority or large minority choose none of the above, the issue should be readdressed later, with more choices offered. Similarly, if more detail is required or more detailed specifics of a policy decided on, then the issue should keep being readdressed until consensus is achieved. A monitoring process for all new policies and laws should be set up. When a new policy or law is proposed to the public, a metric for success must be clearly stated, or at least a desired outcome. That way a monitor can scientifically assess whether or not the law or policy is performing as stated. If not, then the law or policy must be modified to function correctly or removed and replaced with a better option, which takes into account the failings of its predecessor. The results of such assessment must always be presented to the public. The monitor should help to counteract the possibility that the public would vote for something self-destructive. I believe that such a system could change society for the better in many ways. It would increase democratic participation because people would see that the way they vote has a real effect on their society. Also, by seeing that they are actually responsible for political decisions, this would encourage people to take a more mature and educated approach to voting. Policies that affect education, healthcare, employment and so on, would begin to change to better serve the majority of people instead of the current minority. It could also do away with political parties in general, by making them unnecessary. When anyone can propose a policy and have it subjected to public approval, it would seem silly to choose a list of policies that you don't completely approve of. Making scientific scrutiny of political decisions mandatory and binding would mean that policies must work as well as be approved of in order to exist. Also, subterfuge would be difficult because a policy could not have a different purpose to its stated purpose. To reiterate, the mechanism for a purely democratic party must include the following 6 characteristics. 1. Freedom of speech. People must be able to say what they think on an issue so that others can vote on it in full understanding of what is intended. Also, democracy is the rule of the people, and people cannot rule if they cannot say what they want. 2. A secure method of electronic, preferably televised, voting. This is important to make it easier to have multiple votes in a short time period, and also to make it easily accessible to all people. But electronic voting systems are at risk of hacking, and it is vital that a reliable method of preventing this be enabled. A typical televised vote could take the form of a show where an idea is presented and discussed, allowing differences of opinion to be presented and ending with a vote on the issue. 3. Freedom of information. People must have free access to all information, only excluding active military and espionage information which would put the country at risk. Such information must be revealed publicly at a later date. Politicians should not have privacy for anything other than their private family lives. Not only must information be free to access, but it must also be clear where it is to be found and easy to get to. 4. Scientific review. Because people may not always vote for the best policy, it is important to test all policies and review the result. The result must be made public, and if it fails to achieve its purpose, it must be modified or replaced to better do so. 5. Accountability. Politicians must not make decisions on behalf of the public, and must be immediately removed from office and prosecuted if they do. This should be law, and the public should also have a civic responsibility to remove corrupt politicians from office. 6. A system of accumulating policy ideas. While politicians can present ideas to the public for a vote, a true democracy must also accept suggestions from the public which can be voted on. A method for people to submit such suggestions must be put in place. The internet provides one source. Another could be that MPs will be constantly meeting with the public and taking their suggestions to the televised voting system. There is much to say on the subject of democracy. Many arguments for and against. I have only covered a little here and made a suggestion as to how we could have a true democracy instead of the sham we are currently stuck with. Please let me know what you think, and feel free to ask questions. Thank you very much for watching. If you found this video interesting, please give it a like and tell your friends about it. Also, please subscribe and click the bell to be notified about new videos.